Welcome back to another revision video for Paper 1, Section B. In this one we are going to speed through the information you'll need to know in order to answer a question about the Lego Movie video game, which is the other set product you may be asked to answer questions on in this section. So let's get going. So, the Lego video game was released in February 2014 alongside the official release of the movie. The game puts players in control of various characters from the movie, utilising Lego pieces to make their way through several levels. For the first time in the series, environments are completely made out of Lego pieces. It introduces two main new character types, regular builders such as Emmett in earlier levels, and master builders such as Batman, Benny, Princess Unikitty, Vitruvius and Wildstar. Regular builders are unable to normally construct objects out of piles of Lego pieces and instead require instruction pages that are found throughout each level for the construction worker characters to use. Using these, players follow the instructions to build objects with specific pieces, like real-life Lego sets. Master builders, on the other hand, have the ability to grab Lego pieces from the environment and use them to create something new. So the game relies heavily on intertextuality, which is when media text reference other media text to create meaning. Have a look at this trailer to see if you can find those intertextual references to the film.
I know what you're thinking. He is the least qualified person in the world to lead us. And you are right.
Come with me if you want to not die.
Everybody, I'm here.
Batman?
Jump on!
Are you serious?
Let's go!
Who are you here to see?
I'm here to see your butt.
Oh my gosh!
Pow. Wham. First try.
So you can see there that the game uses intertextuality by including the same characters and using the same actors for the voices. It also includes similar narratives and scenes from the film, which includes quotes, and the overall visual style is very similar. Using intertextuality in this way was important in allowing the film and game to cross-promote each other through synergy, so children would see the film and want to purchase the game, or vice versa, which creates two streams of revenue for the company instead of just one. So on that note, let's have a look at the industry side of the video game in terms of ownership and distribution. Now, the video games industry is slightly different from the film industry in terms of the process. Games are produced by what is known as developers, who are usually studios comprising of software engineers, artists and programmers. They are then distributed by publishers who are responsible for marketing the film and getting it to the audience. There is then a whole other sector of the industry known as console manufacturers. These are the companies that make the machines that the games are played on, such as smartphones, computers, and actual games consoles like the Xbox and PlayStation. Some console manufacturers like Nintendo actually develop some of their own games, but this isn't the case for many of them, and instead they make deals with developers and publishers to have the games be able to be played on their consoles. A bit like how a cinema doesn't actually produce a film themselves. So how does this apply to the Lego video game? Well, it was developed by a company called TT Fusion, which used to be an independent company but was bought by Warner Bros. In 2007. So there we can see clearly a subsidiary company and a parent company working together, which as we know means that they were both part of the Time Warner conglomerate. This links to the idea of vertical integration. See the previous video for a full explanation on that. And in this case, vertical integration enables the business to maximize the potential of the brand. It gives existing audiences new experiences and further pleasures outside of the film, and it also allows them to reach new audiences, i.e. non-cinema going video gamers who may not have seen the movie. This means that Warner Bros. Published the game, and in actual fact Warner Bros. Has their own sector called Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment, which specialises in the distribution and marketing of video games. That means in terms of marketing, they were able to rely on the marketing campaign for the Lego movie to promote the video game as well. This also meant the game relied heavily on synergizing with the movie by releasing on the same date and using the same characters and narratives so that they would be able to sync with each other. And if you think about it, this is a clever strategy because Warner Bros. Are essentially killing two two birds with one stone, and at the same time are creating two streams of income. They also synergize with the video game franchise, as there are a wide variety of LEGO themed games that all help to cross-promote each other. So which platforms was it released on? Warner Brothers' method was to use what's called a cross-platform release, which essentially means releasing a product on a wide variety of platforms so that it can be accessed in a way that is convenient for the consumer. So here you can see all of the platforms that the LEGO video game was released on, which links to this idea of convergence that we've discussed before. Now, a cross-platform release is arguably the most important factor that a publisher must consider when deciding on how to release their game, because game consoles are expensive to buy. And so gamers are not going to be able to buy a new console just to access a game that they cannot get on their current one. So if Warner Brothers had decided only to release a video game on the PlayStation, for example, then they would be losing audiences who access their games on the Xbox or via Apple iOS. Although some games are exclusive to certain platforms, cross-platform releases are becoming more and more the norm as publishers realise that this is the best way to maximise their audiences. So in terms of regulation, we already know that movies are regulated in the UK by the BBFC. Games follow a similar pattern of regulation in that they must be rated before they are released in the UK, and the Video Standards Council classifies games in the UK, giving them an age rating. Regulation in video games is arguably more important because it is easier for young gamers to get their hands on content that is not appropriate for them. The VSC uses the PEGI rating system, which stands for the Pan-European Games Information, and you can see from this diagram the ratings and categories that they use. Now, unfortunately, I was unable to find a breakdown of the ratings for the first LEGO video game on VSC's website, but here is an insight into the rating given to the LEGO video game, which was also giving a 7, the same as the first game. You can see that the game has received a PEGI 7 because it features non-realistic violence in a child-friendly setting or context, and violence that lacks any apparent harm or injury to fantasy or mythical beings and creatures. Warner Brothers would have purposely ensured that the content of their game was suitable for 7 and over, because essentially the family audience is their target market, so they needed to ensure their target market could access the product. Which leads us nicely onto audience, where we will focus mainly on the appeal of the game. So like the film, the game is targeted primarily at a family audience, although arguably it is more likely that the game will be aimed at children in those families. So back to these guys and why the video game appeals to audiences. Well, firstly, in terms of surveillance, we can see how this would be similar to the film in that it provides younger audiences with an understanding of the world around them, for example, the themes of good versus evil. The game, however, might teach younger players how to play consoles and interactive games so that they could be developing their skills. It would be entertaining for many of the reasons that the film would be entertaining, but the game would also offer entertainment for its interactivity, because there are lots of problem-solving activities for gamers to tackle, and this becomes more challenging as the game progresses. Again, with personal identity, because the same characters as the film are used, there may be many similarities in terms of how audiences might relate to the characters. However, the game takes this to another level because audiences can play as their favourite characters, so this may make them feel connected to them on a more personal level. It offers opportunities for audiences to become the character rather than just watching them, so there is this element of active involvement that the film doesn't give you. And finally, in terms of social interaction, again there are similarities in that social media and forums allow fans to interact with each other, and particularly with games, gamers discuss techniques, cheats and how to complete the game with each other. The game is also available in multiplayer mode, which enables audiences to play the game with family and friends. So that's it. We have covered pretty much everything you need to know about the LEGO video game. Obviously this video is much shorter than the previous one about the LEGO movie, and that's because there are many crossovers in terms of marketing and distribution. Much of what applies to the LEGO movie applies to the game as well. Next time we'll be focusing on how to answer questions 6 and 7, which will test your knowledge on everything we have learned in the last 2 videos. So revise over that and I'll see you there.